Hello DCS Mission Editors, and an especially warm welcome to the returning subscribers of the channel. In this video we're going to take a look at artillery. Artillery comes in two flavours. We have the real kind of artillery that's fired from vehicles across the map, and then we have the so-called fake artillery. We're going to take a look at both the pros and cons of them, and then also create a real functioning mission at the end of this. The mission will be multiplayer capable. You can of course use it in single player. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, sit down, strap in, get your mission editor out, here we go. I thought it would be real helpful to just give us a heads up what it actually is that we're going to be making now. So we start on the ground in an F-16. It's multiplayer compatible for up to 4 players. 1 lead, 3 wingmen. Of course, you can just do it single player. As long as the lead aircraft is occupied, this mission will work fine. We start on the ground as a quick reaction response force, waiting for something to happen. That's something, of course, being the artillery strike. This artillery strike takes place. Once it's happened and out the way, our mission is to go out and locate who was responsible, take them out. Once they have been taken out, a message will pop up saying, great, return to base. We return to base, and once we are back here where we're starting off from now, the mission completes. So that's what we're going to be making. Let's jump over into a blank mission editor where we begin. You can, of course, use any map, any aircraft. That is the beauty of mission editing. You do it the way you want. One of the things about multiplayer missions is unless you have complete control over it, like you're doing it with a couple of friends, you have no control when people join and leave. Because of that, using a sort of artillery fire for effect type mission at the start is only really going to work if you do have complete control. So this will be better for a small group of friends where you can all say, right, we're going to meet up and start the mission together and play. You know, that's for this type of mission. So let's first off have a look at how not to do it. I know there are going to be some people that haven't used the artillery before. We'll just cover that real quickly. So I'm going to place a ground vehicle down. I'm going to choose the Russian faction because they have the best choice of artillery. If we see here under the artillery group, we've got a bunch of them. So I've just gone Russian category artillery. And here we see we've got various different ones. We've got this one here. We've got this one. These are some of the ones that have been recently updated to the high fidelity model. I mean, look at that. Even the suspension. Look at that. It's a very, very high detailed, all the mud hanging off it. So anyway, with that one unit selected, again, I'm doing this super quick because this doesn't actually apply. We'll add a few more, in this case 6. We come over to the advanced options here under the edit. We don't add a waypoint unless you want it to drive somewhere first. Click on the add option. Under the perform task drop down here, we're going to choose fire at point. You see you get a red line with a triangle that you can click on. And as if we click and drag it, you see there's this red circle here. That's the max range. You just drop it down somewhere within that circle, let's say there. And then the artillery units are going to fire at this point. You see all the rockets will land in a small area around that point. They don't all hit exact, as you'd expect. Now, if you increase the zone radius here, it goes to a maximum of 3,000 and some. If I try and set 5,000, you'll see that. See it defaults at 3,281. That's the maximum. You'd think these rockets would land randomly within that circle. It's not the case. What actually ends up happening, the rockets land randomly somewhere along where this yellow line is to the edge of that circle. Don't ask me why. I think it's just a limitation of the game. Maybe Eagle Dynamics will change that at some point. But for now, just trust me on this. The rockets are going to land everywhere along this yellow line here. You're not going to get any over here or here. So with that out of the way, let's now look at how to create this fire for effect, sort of an introduction mission for a multiplayer that you can use. I'm going to use this base here. You can, of course, use any. The reason I'm choosing this one is because the parking spaces are nice and spread out, and it'll allow us to make some nice destruction. So first off, let's start with the player's aircraft that we're going to be. I'm just going to click on the aircraft icon here, click down, going to fly as USA. We're going to do it as a combat air support because, of course, the mission's going to be take out the artillery units that fired on base. I'm going to use the F-16, of course, you use whichever you like. And under the skill option here, instead of using player like we usually do, let's use the client option. Coming over here, you can set up the specifics of the aircraft. Of course, the player can choose it anyway. But for now, let's give a default cast mission sort of a loadout. And I'm just going to use the rockets. I created this drop down here. You won't have these. To create your own loadout, you just click new here. Call it whatever you like, F-16 CAS loadout 1 or whatever name you like. And then here you see it's all blank. You just create whatever loadout you like here until you've finished up every single one of them, and then save it. And then you'll also have access to these when you're in mission. It'll allow you to quickly reload in multiplayer with your favorite loadout. But for now, I'm just going to choose this one. I've called it Rocks because guess what? It's loaded up with rockets. So that's what I'm going to do for my first player. Let's rename the group. Let's call it F-16, whatever you like. I'm just going to increase for 2, 3, and 4. So there we go. It allows for up to 4 players to fly together. I'm going to drop down to Unit 1. I'm just going to rename each one of these. So I'm going to call it, I don't know, Captain Viper 1. Let's Control C. Switch over to Unit 2, paste, and I'm just going to rename it to 2, paste, rename it to 3 at the end, and paste. Number 4. So now we've got our 4 aircraft there. Each of the additional aircraft that we add after aircraft number 1 will copy the properties of number 1. In other words, here we are looking at aircraft number 4. It's got the same paintwork and the same ammo carried as aircraft 1. We can change it individually. For example, we can have aircraft 4 looking like this, and aircraft 3, 2, 1 will still have the rockets. So there's that. The next thing we're going to do is change the start. We want to be on the ground. The default option is to start on the ramp. And on the ramp means, you know, you're in a specific parking spot. Can also be in the parking space but hot, so the engines are already running. I like this option because it just saves that 5-minute startup. Although if you are doing a proper mission with friends, you might want to have that cold startup. I don't know. That's up to you. But for this mission, we're going to use takeoff from ground hot. And the reason we're using this option is because we start on the ground, but we don't need to start in the predefined parking spaces. We can start anywhere. And for this artillery sort of preview, that's the way I want it. So unit number 1, let's start by moving this guy. I'm going to place him just outside of the hangar here. And the only reason I'm doing this is so that the players can actually see the artillery going on. Let's jump over to unit number 2 and move this guy. Let's place him here. Want these nice and close because we want them to be surrounded by artillery, you see. This one's unit number 3. Let's place them there. And unit number 4. Do you know what? There. So let's just move. Yeah, if you click 1, it drags the whole squad about. So try and position unit number 1 first. I'm just trying to move these in such a way that, let's say player 4 isn't there, that these two can still get past. Let's try and move this one a bit closer here as well. There we go. So this is going to be our friendly group of guys, the people that we're flying with, or who fly this are going to fly together. Let's now start creating our artillery units. Again, we're not going to fire real pieces of artillery, although we are going to have some real pieces of artillery to destroy. So a bit of a word salad there, but let's place our artillery. You know what? I'm going to place them here. So click down, and of course, these are going to belong to the red guys, artillery. And because they're not really firing, you can use whichever units from this drop down that you like. I'm going to have a bit of a pick and mix, and that way then every player is, you know, some people have got bigger bombs. They're going to be more useful for the sort of artillery units like this, and then the lighter ones will be better fared against the rockets. So let's create, I don't know, 4 of those. And I'm going to just rename this group RT. And I'm going to come down here, change it to USA, RT again. And this is a different type. Let's create 5 of those. And then we'll create another type here, USA again. Let's choose the, what's that? The Uragan. That's one of the new models, highly detailed ones that Eagle Dynamics did. We'll create 4 or 5 of them. And then last but not least, let's choose the Grad. That's another very highly detailed one. Still blown away by stuff like the suspension. It's just incredible. Anyway, whatever. Enough of that. 5 of those. There we go. So here are the targets to be destroyed. And these are not actually going to do anything other than if we attack, say, this guy, these are going to respond and try and dive for cover, although there isn't any. Also give them a little SAM site of coverage. So back over to the unit here, USA, air defense, and I'm just going to go with 1 of each. Of course, depending on how many people you think are going to fly, you might want to up this or down this. I'm just going to choose 1 OSA, the SA-8, the short-range radar guy. I'll keep the skill on average. Unit number 2 is going to be the SA-9, the Strela, the infrared type missile. And then unit number 3 is going to be the Shilka, the AAA, the radar guided one. Again, skill average, and let's rename this group the Red SAM. So this SAM site, if we zoom out, we see we've got a couple of rings there. We've got the AAA ranges, the infrared ranges, and the range of the OSA. Importantly, the ranges do not cover the actual airbase itself, so we'll be able to take off and land in peace without immediately being locked up. And again, this is a very, very short range mission, unnaturally so, but hey, that's why the alarm with the artillery, right? We have here, if we look here on this SAM site here, we have one option here to hide them on the MFD. You know, usually when you fly in the F-16, F-18 or other modern fighters, you see you've got this sort of, on your map, on your SA page, you see where the enemy SAM site is together with a threat ring. Well, if we click this option here, hidden on MFD, you won't see where the SAM site is. I think that's a pretty cool option to have ticked for a mission like this, because you wouldn't know that there was a SAM site there, because again, we don't know that this artillery site is here until we've been attacked. Whoops. My mouse wheel is on its way out. Let's now set up the artillery barrage itself. It's going to be 1, 2, 3. So let's come over here. I'm just going to call it FFE1. This is going to be my fire for effect zone 1. And let's put in a range. 800 feet seems a little small. Let's try 14. That looks perfect. Perhaps ever so slightly less. Let's go for 12. And I'm going to position this in such a way that the edge here comes fairly close to my aircraft but doesn't touch them. Don't want it right next to them either, not like a couple of inches. But if we look at that, we're about 100 feet away-ish. Let's move it tiny bit closer, maybe something like that. There we go. I'm just going to click on this, press Control-C to copy it, click over there, Control-V. Again, I'm doing the same, and I'm going to rename this FFE number 2. Control-V once more. Move this behind the aircraft. I'm going to shrink this one down as well. Let's try 800. There we go. And let's rename this one FFE3. That's just my little abbreviation for fire for effect. So the aircraft are more or less surrounded by the zones. Doesn't matter if they overlap or not. Of course, you don't want any gaps too big because we want this to try and seem natural. So these areas are going to have the artillery in. How do we make that begin? That's going to hang off our old friend, the flag. So let's start off with a ground unit, a Humvee unit. Here is going to be unarmed Humvee Jeep. And we'll just call the name of the group here the Hummer, and the unit name Hummer as well. Skill average doesn't matter. Let's up the starting speed just so that it's not starting completely from 0. He can drive along the road to here, and then he'll come off to here and then here. All right. In fact, let's delete waypoint 2. There's no need for it. So waypoint 0, the initial speed, 10. I just want to set that to 10. Waypoint 1, let's up this because, again, we want it nice and fast. 26 and 26. Reaching waypoint 1, that's going to be the point that flag 1 becomes enabled. We're going to the create trigger zone. Let's make it real small. And we're just going to call this, actually going to call it flag 1. Let's drop it down 150 in size. I'm just going to move this over here. In other words, when that Hummer gets there, we're going to enable flag 1 and drop it down even more, actually 100 feet. There we go. I'm going to copy that, paste over here. I'm just going to rename this one to Boom. We'll see why shortly. Let's come over to the action menu, new line, and flag 1 is fireworks. So flag 1 is when we get the artillery going. The condition is going to be Hummer gets to flag 1. Don't worry, we'll run through all this once it's in place. So if it's not entirely making sense, the condition here is that the unit is inside zone. The unit, Hummer, inside zone flag 1. There's flag 1. And the action is going to be simply that. We turn on flag number 1. Been over flags before. Do watch my intro on it if you haven't already. But briefly, just think of you've got thousands of guys, each with a big number on their t-shirt, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to thousands. And they're all holding a big red flag. And when we turn flag on, imagine this guy is now holding his big red flag in the air saying, hey, yeah, I'm flag number 1. I'm guy number 1. My flag is in the air. So think of it like guy number 1 with the flag is now holding his flag in the air. And then we can make other things happen based on that. And in this case, we're going to make artillery land. We're going to make it land in this zone, this zone, this zone. And the advantage of using fake artillery is threefold. Number 1, we don't got to wait ages for the unit to point and start firing. It's instantaneous. As soon as we say it to happen, it'll happen. Number 2, lag. Multiplayer using real artillery causes lag. The more artillery and the more players exponentially increases the lag. This is a way to mitigate that by in large part. And 3, we can have very precise control of the damage, including 0 damage. And that's what we're going to have here. These artillery pieces that land are actually going to cause 0 damage. So let's get on with doing that now. So with this truck reaching this area, the artillery is going to begin. Of course, the players don't know that. We only know that as the mission editor. So a one-time thing, we're going to say FFE zone 1. So for zone 1, the condition for the artillery is clearly that the flag is true. So the guy with the flag has got to be holding it in the air. That's the first thing. The second thing, we want a slight delay. So let's create a new line and say that the time since flag, number 1, is 10 seconds. That'll do. In other words, the guy's been holding his flag up in the air. Yes. And he's been holding it there for 10 seconds. Yes. Then do this. The action, if we come new, see here we have shelling zone. And the zone's going to be this one here, FFE1. So the zone FFE1. Make sure you leave the TNT equivalency here to 0. That's how we ensure that there's no damage. And the amount of shells that are going to land. I find for this kind of thing, something like 200 is a reasonable number. And again, these will land randomly in this range. In fact, that's the fourth advantage. We get to space the shells out randomly in true style, not like using the actual artilleries where they don't land randomly. So there we go. So we've got 200 shells randomly in there once flag 1 has been on for 10 seconds. Let's now add this for zones 2 and 3, although I'm going to adjust the timings and the amounts slightly. So I'm just going to clone this for now. Let's look at zone 2, which is this one up here. This one's going to take slightly longer to happen. So again, we're waiting for this first guy to stick his flag in the air, but instead of waiting 10 seconds, we're going to wait 12. So it's just a couple of seconds longer, and we're going to drop the count down instead of 200 to something like 190. There's about 10 or 15 shells that land per second. So because we're waiting a couple of seconds later, by knocking this number down slightly, you know, that kind of balances out-ish. And now we're going to do the same again for zone 3. So we'll rename it. This time, this one's going to be first because it's behind us and it creates that explosion and the player doesn't immediately see what it is. And it's that, what the F was that kind of thing. So we'll drop this down. Instead of 10 seconds, let's drop it down to 6. So if guy's been holding is in the air, and we'll increase the amount to something like 240 shells. Let's make sure that we have the right zone selected here. Zone 3. Zone 3 for this one. Zone 2, did I change that? I didn't see. For zone 2, I intend this one. I forgot to change the trigger zone here from this to this. So here we are. Zone 1, that's this one here. Zone 1. Zone 2, after 12 seconds, this one up here. And then zone 3 down here, 6 seconds. So this one's actually going to be first, even though it's third in line. And that's going to drop 240 shells down. So if we play this now, I'm going to join you in the game. So let's begin. We've got our choice of aircraft. So let's just choose this one. Okay. Of course, I'm not playing with anybody else, so there will just be me at this moment in time. But importantly, if I try and zoom in, we see that Humvee coming down the road there as the game sound finally begins. It's a good reason, actually, not to have things begin the first second of the mission, because you've got all the units getting into position, assets to load, and so forth. So we know once that Humvee turns off that flag 1's becoming true. And there the artillery begins behind us, then to the front, and then to the left. So it looks like a complete blanket coverage. I'm very happy with the way those zones panned out. It certainly does make it look like it's natural and organic. Of course, leaving a very small area in the middle untouched where our players are, but it's not obvious that that's what was done. Importantly, there's no damage to any of the aircraft. But actually, if we look over here, there's no damage to this truck here, even though he drove right through it. And again, that's because the damage was set to 0. So let's amend that now. Let's quit this. Back to the editor. First thing we want to happen is we want this truck to blow up. The way we're going to blow that truck is simply when he reaches the zone here for boom. So let's come over to the triggers menu. I'm going to create a new line, and we're just going to call it Hummer Bang. Condition's simply going to be when the unit is inside the zone. Boom. So the units. Hummer inside zone. Boom. That's already correct. Actions will drop down to explode unit and Hummer volume. This isn't actually the volume. This is how big the explosion is. Think of it more like, yeah, how powerful the explosion. And if we leave that at 1,000, trust me when I say this, this blowing up here is going to destroy all of us here. So don't leave it at 1,000. Drop it down to something like, well, that player might be playing, so drop it down to as low as you can, number 1, just so that the Humvee itself blows up. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to have a second squadron that is going to occupy some of these hangars. Those will unfortunately get hit. So let's come over to the aircraft menu again. I'm going to choose, why don't we choose the F-18 guys? And let's rename it F-18 Boomers. Just so we know what this group is for. I'm going to rename the first guy F-18 Boom 1. Let's set these guys up first of all. Yeah, they can be set up for combat air patrol. Doesn't really matter because they're not going to go anywhere. It's just this is what we're going to see if we see them. Under the type here, change it take off from ramp. Because these aren't players, we can't have them take off exactly where we want. We at the AI have to start from these fixed positions. What's important is that we don't take off from hot, because otherwise they'll start driving straight away. We want them to have to start up. So choose take off from ramp. Next thing, the exact points. We don't want them too close because we are going to blow these guys up, but we want them in the positions that the players might see. So for example, parking space 32 here facing this way is a great spot for the first guy. So let's drop the parking menu down to 32. Let's now add the second guy. Here is too close. So with the second guy selected, I'm going to choose parking space here, park 30. There we go. I'm just going to show what happens if you try and change something, you lose access to this menu. What I mean is, let's say here, we're looking at the second guy. Maybe we wanted to give him a different loadout. Let's say this one here. When we jump back now to the map view, you see, even though the second guy of the F-18s is still selected, we've lost access to which parking space he can be at. If we change the type to turning point or anything else, we lose all of the other positions we've defined, which is really annoying, especially for on the fourth guy. To get around that and not have to do this, change it from take off from ramp to take off from hot. Now you see the parking space returns, then just drop it back to take off from ramp. And that's how you regain access to this parking spot without losing all the positions of the other aircraft. So let's come over to aircraft number 3. And I think 28 is a good spot for this guy. So the further away these guys are, the bigger the explosions can be. And I think aircraft number 4 can be in parking space 27. So let's look at now destroying these aircraft. We want it to be random, but we want the explosions to really cause some damage, especially over here where it's not going to impact our aircraft themselves. So coming over to the trigger menu, it's going to be a one-time thing. Let's call it the Hornet Boomings, or whatever you like. Condition. How do we make them destroy? Well, first off, we have to wait for the artillery to begin, and we know the artillery begins after flag 1 is true. Secondly, we know that the artillery isn't going to land here until 10 seconds because that's what we said, so we certainly need to wait at least that long. So let's jump over time since flag 1, 10 seconds. However, it doesn't make sense that the very first piece of artillery that lands destroys the first aircraft, so 10 seconds is probably a little quick. Let's wait a couple of seconds. Let's drop that down to 12 seconds. So the artillery's landing has been doing for a couple of seconds. Let's now add random. So which order are they going to destroy? Excuse me, that's going to be random. So if we come over to the next line here, I'm going to choose random, and it's going to be 10% chance. Why 10%? Because these checks are performed every second. So if flag 1's true, has been for 10 seconds, then there's going to be a 10% chance this is happening. But it's going to keep on happening until it is true. And so on average, you might say it's going to take 10 seconds. For those of you who are advanced on statistical maths, you might say it's not really on average going to be 10. It's probably going to be 5 or 6. Whatever it is, it's a 10% chance every second that this is going to happen. And the action simply going to be, if we look here, explode unit. Let's start with the first guy, F-18 boom 1. And remember, we want an explosion, but quite small. Let's say 2, volume of 2. So I'm just going to clone this line. This is going to be for my second guy. Again, same as before, 10% chance of it happening every second, because these checks are going to happen every second. Again, it's only going to happen one time. So once the aircraft's destroyed, these checks aren't going to keep happening. It's a one-time thing. Explode unit. Let's move over to the second guy now. So we'll set number 2. We're going to increase the power of this destination. Let's go for 20. Let's clone this again. We're going to choose guy number 3, which is Boomers 2, which was this guy. And let's increase this even more. Let's go to 200. And let's clone this guy here. And this one is going to be this one here. And this one is going to be Let's go all the way up to 1,000. What I'm going to do to make sure that this happens after the others, I'm actually going to up the delay a little bit. So it's not going to happen until 20 seconds after this. And then there's still going to be a little bit of randomification. Hopefully, in fact, you know what? Let's up it even more to 25. Let's reduce the randomness by having a higher percentage of like 40%. So after 25 seconds, let's go 30 seconds. So after 30 seconds, with a 40% chance per second, so it's basically going to be a couple of seconds or thereabouts, then it's going to blow up. So let's have a look now what we've got done so far. Let's start with the same aircraft. And if you are making this mission for other people, it's worth checking the position of all 4 aircraft just to make sure that the damage isn't destroying or causing damage to your aircraft, the artillery, because there's nothing more annoying than joining a mission and straight away being damaged, whatever the cause. So there's that Humvee driving down. And here the AI aircraft starting up. There it is, turning off. So we know once it turns off, it's reached that area. There's the delay. There's the first lot of artillery behind us. Here's the second lot of artillery to our front. And then over here. The F-18s should start detonating now randomly. And we'll know that they are. It looks like one's been hit there because we'll see this bigger explosion together with thick black smoke. So clearly there's been an aircraft destroyed here. There's been one destroyed here. There was that huge explosion at the back. And it looks like this one here, I think we need to fiddle with the explosive power because clearly it wasn't enough to destroy it. You see, that explosion there was so big it destroyed the hangar. So let's up the first guy here slightly so that we don't forget to do that. So this guy here, number 1, if we come over to the triggers here, look for the first guy. We see we had a volume of 2. Let's up that to, let's try 5 or 6, and hopefully that won't cause us any damage. In any case, let's now look at the mission itself. We want to destroy these pieces of artillery here. So under the mission briefing, the situation is going to be something like you join the base for a QRA, quick reaction, duty when it comes under a sustained artillery attack. Your job, once the attack subsides, is to go in, subsides is to go locate the artillery and destroy. You spruce it up however you like. We certainly had this unchecked, the MFD, so again, we don't know immediately where to go. What we're going to do, clicking on the first guy, we're just going to draw rough waypoints in. So I'm going to click on the add menu. My waypoint 1 is going to be just off the end of the runway, so let's say there. And then say, we'll go waypoint 2, waypoint 3, waypoint 4. Let's zoom in a tad. Waypoint 5 is going to set us up for landing. Waypoint 6 is going to be the landing zone. Let's come over to waypoint 4. Let's edit it slightly there. In fact, let's add one more waypoint. Waypoint 5. So see, we've got a nice little box drawn there. And say the artillery is believed to be somewhere within that area. And clearly, you're free to move these around anywhere that you like on any map that you like. You can have them right next to the base. You could have them at the other side of the map. It's up to you. Because we're using fake artillery, you don't need to worry about the range of the artillery units. So there's that. How do we know that this has been complete? So that's the next part of this mission. Again, we're just concerned about these groups here. Don't care about the SAM site, whether the players destroy them or not. Clearly, they're probably going to, because that's their greatest threat. but we're just concerned that these groups here. So let's come over to the triggers menu. It's a one-time thing. Let's just say RT destroyed. And the condition is that the group is dead. And here we want all these to be dead. So we've got RT group here. Let's clone. Remember, these are always AND conditions. So the group RT is dead, and RT1, and RT2, and RT-3. Again, this group corresponds to this one. I think this one is this one or this one. In any case, all of these 4 groups correspond to these. Once all of these are dead, we want the action. We're just going to use our friend, the flag 99. In other words, once all the artillery units have been destroyed, flag 99, and then we're going to say message here, message to all, which is going to be RT units all destroyed. Return RTB to starting locations to pass the mission. Let's just say RTB starting locations to pass the mission. Let's just say lead pilot, because otherwise this is going to get really confusing. Lead pilot must RTB starting location to pass the mission. Going to add a delay, because again, once these artillery units have been destroyed, you don't want immediately a message coming up saying it's been done as soon as the last bomb hits the final target. So again, we'll add a little delay there. Let's say 20-second delay just for that little bit of dispense. And I like to put a sound every time I add a message, just so that the player is aware that something's happening. So let's come over sound to all. And this is just my private library sound. So that'll do. Sound 38. So quite a small quiet beep there. So I'm going to have it repeat. This message appearing 20 seconds after the targets have been destroyed, so I'm going to make sure that the beep starts at 19. I'm going to clone it a couple of times. It's then going to beep again at 20 seconds and a beep at 21. That way it's going to go dit, 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 and on the middle beep we're going to get that message there. So there we go. With that now done, those destroyed, flag 99 becoming true, we now want to check that the lead pilot has returned. I think it's worth adding a message here, situation a minimum, because again this can be played as single. A minimum of 1 player is required who must fly as the lead F-16. There we go. Now he's got to return to the start position here. So what I'm going to do is create a new trigger. Just call it the start pause. Reduce the radius down to a suitable size. 500 is already a little bit big. I think 400 will do nicely. That covers the area nice and it's not too big. Right. How do we check that this has been done? So let's make a new line and we'll call it success. And the condition is that the player, which is a unit, is inside zone. Captain Viper 1, so the lead guy in the zone start position. So once this guy is back here, then we say success. But hang on, the guy is already inside this zone when the mission begins. So this would instantly complete the mission. In order to mitigate that, we need a new condition. And this is based on all the artillery units being dead, which, if you remember, makes flag 99 become true. So in order for that check to take place, let's move that to the top. This condition is only going to take place once flag 99 is true. Flag 99 only becomes true, as we've just done, once all the artillery units here are destroyed. So once that happens and the lead of the flight is back in position, you could, of course, if you knew everybody was going to fly, you could change this to group, where are we? All of group inside zone. And you just say all of the group F-16 is back inside the zone. If, however, one of the group gets destroyed or you're only flying with 3 players or whatever, this can get messy. You could, of course, also have it as part of the group is inside the zone, F-16 start position. Do you know what? Let's keep it as that. So if part of the group gets in there, then, and flag 99 is true, then do this. The action is clearly going to be message to all. Well done. Mission completed successfully. You could, of course, get real complicated and ensure that all the players are here, but it goes beyond the scope of this tutorial. This at least checks that at least one guy returns back after completing the mission. So well done, mission completed successfully. That's going to show for 10 seconds. And let's add a 5-second delay. So in other words, he returns and then this. But let's have a look at this more closely. Flag is true 99. So in other words, artillery has been destroyed and part of the F-16 is in this group. What if you just flew over that trigger? Would that become true? Well, of course, because you would be inside that circle. So the way that we go on to ensure this is that we're going to ensure that the unit is on the ground. So the unit AGL, altitude above ground level, let's drop down to Captain Viper, is less than, let's just say 8. Why 8? Well, sometimes counts the height of the gear extension as well. So if he is less than 8, but he could just be flying past very, very low. So let's clone that again and say, because, you know, if players can cheat, they will. Unit speed, or at least some will, lower than 1 knot. So in other words, he's got to come back, be on the ground and be less than 1 knot, which is basically stopped. Then this will happen. And that is, well done, mission complete successfully with a 5-second delay. So in other words, he'll stop in that zone. Then there's going to be a 5-second wait. Then this message is going to appear. Let's add a sound with it. Sound to all. That same one again. Let's clone it. So we want this one at 4 seconds. This one at 5 seconds. Just 2 quick beeps. And then that. And then we're going to end the mission. So we're going to add a new line here under actions, and it's going to be end mission. The winner is going to be blue, because the players win. It's going to be a congrats. The artillery units responsible, and you can fill out the rest. Ensure we have a start delay here. Why? Because there's already a delay for this message, which is 5 seconds. This is going to show for 10 seconds. Don't think it really needs to be on for the full 10 seconds, but I think, let's say, let's add a 12-second delay. So the planes pull up after or the first guy anyway pulls up after the end of the mission here, 99. All of these conditions are therefore met. There's that well done message 5 seconds after he pulls up with a little bing. The message displays for 10 seconds, so the total of this is 15 seconds if you like, and partway through that 15 seconds, in other words 12 seconds later, the game will end and they will be shown as winners. And so with that, we have the end of a mission. It's a multiplayer mission. It has artillery, both real and fake. I hope you found this one useful. Until next time, wherever in the world you may be, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.